Alright, yesterday I played Pokemon FireRed with Aerodactyl, so today I'm going to continue this fossil series because it's Halloween month and complete the game with Omastar. As with all my FireRed videos, I'll be starting out as Omanyte and then evolving throughout the playthrough. This happens at level 40, so it's going to take some time. Luckily, this evolutionary line does not have a slow growth rate, it's a medium fast growth rate instead, so it's not going to be delayed that much. For base stats, Omanyte has 35 HP, 40 attack, 100 defense, 35 speed, 90 special attack, and 55 special defense. This is a base stat total of 355. Once it evolves, all of its stats increase, taking its total up to 495, and then its special attack is honestly fantastic at 115. In Generation 1, that's its special stat though, so it also works defensively, and when the special stat was split in Generation 2, Omastar got what I think is the better spread with a higher special attack, but its special defense is really not that good at only 70. That is quite unfortunate for it because prior to Generation 4, all grass type moves deal special damage, and as a rock water type, this thing's going to take 4 times damage from those moves. Now you might think with this typing that Brock is going to be pretty simple, but yeah, we do start with a water move, but it's withdraw, so the only way it can deal damage is with the move Constrict, which is quite frankly awful. Watch it here against all of the Pokemon on Route 1, it's doing like almost nothing. Luckily I have a good defense stat, so I'm not actually at risk spamming this move and I can gain experience, it's just very slow. As I was doing this training and depleting all 35 PP of this weak move, I realized that Struggle is just going to be far faster. So after returning Oak's parcel, I spam out all the PP of Withdraw using potions to keep Omanyte alive, and now I can at least use a move that has base 50 power. Although Struggle still does use physical attack, so Omanyte's utilizing its weaker offensive stat. With Struggle, I head into Viridian Forest to face the bug catchers for additional experience. This isn't going to be free for me because the Weedles have Poison Sting, and if this move inflicts poison early on into the battle, then I won't have enough health to survive, especially when Omanyte is damaging itself every time it attacks. I intentionally fight Bugcatcher Doug after defeating a bunch of other Pokemon, leveling up to 10. This is because his team has 2 Weedles. Unfortunately for me, I do get poisoned here, and as a result, Omanyte has its first reset this early on into the run. It might have been better here to take the Blackout, but I did decide to reset, that's just sort of my habit. I'll skip Doug for now and proceed through the forest. There are 2 other Bugcatchers which I don't have problems defeating, and then I use up all my remaining potions training on wild Pokemon. Because I've fought some trainers, I can go to the Pewter City Mart and purchase only 1 more potion, which will extend my struggle training, but only slightly. But this ends up being just enough because Omanyte is able to get to level 13 where it learns Bite. In Generation 2 and 3, Dark-type moves deal special damage, so finally I'm going to be able to utilize my special attack stat. Okay, so now I'm basically prepared for the first gym. I'm going to fight the Camper for additional experience, and with him out of the way, now it's time to face Brock. His 2 Pokemon are quite frankly terrible against special attacks, so just using Bite I'm able to do much more than half to the Geodude and finish it off in only 2 turns. My Rock typing means that I resist all the normal type moves, and while I do take neutral damage from Rock Tomb, the Onix doesn't really gain any benefits from lowering my speed, plus Bite is doing more than enough damage. So that's an easy first gym leader for me, and with the Boulder Badge I gain a 10% boost to my attack stat. I'm going to register my TM case, which means every time I press select I'm going to be able to reopen this menu. It's a really convenient feature that they added in FireRed. To fill my 4th empty move slot, I teach Rock Tomb to Omanyte, and now it has the same type attack bonus damage. Although I really hate this move because it only has 80% accuracy, every time I have to use it, it feels a bit frustrating. Route 3 does have a lot of trainers with bug-type Pokemon, so it makes sense to use it here, especially against the Cocoons. Just outside of Mount Moon, I'm going to grab the Persim Berry. This is my solution to Misty's Water Pulses so that I don't get confused. As a Rock type, she's going to deal neutral damage to Omanyte, and with a low special defense stat, I'm a little bit scared about going up against her. So in Mount Moon, I'm going to spend my time investing in a bunch of additional training. Omanyte hits level 19 where I can learn Water Gun, which is a far better same type attack bonus move when compared with Rock Tomb. It might have lower base power, but at least it has 100% accuracy and utilizes my special stat. At the end of the cave, I have to make the most important choice in this playthrough, which is, do I choose the Helix Fossil because I am using the Helix Fossil? And no, the answer is no, always the Dome Fossil. This is the better choice. Okay, heading into Cerulean City, I have to make the decision between fighting Misty or the rival. And I think in this case with Rock Tomb to counter the Pidgeotto, it makes more sense to go for the rival because I don't want to go up against Misty's Starmie just yet. After all, I'm not faster than either of her Pokemon. Okay, so will I one-hit the rival's rival's Pidgeotto, and the answer is no. Luckily, it doesn't go for Sand Attack, and I'm able to take it down for free in 2 turns. Next is Bulbasaur. It misses Sleep Powder. My Bite is not doing enough damage to it, and on the second turn, it puts Omanyte to sleep and then uses Vine Whip, which does enough damage to knock me out from full health. So that's how bad 4 times damage feels when you have a low special defense stat. Since I can't 2-hit the rival's Bulbasaur, I think it makes more sense to take on Misty now. I fight both the trainers in her gym. This brings Omanyte up to level 21 or so, and now I'm in a bit of a sticky situation. I either have to defeat Misty, which will give me access to Water Pulse, could help against the rival, but it doesn't really improve my odds against the Bulbasaur. Anyways, let's see if this battle is possible. First is Staryu. It does about a quarter with Water Pulse, and since it's outspeeding, it gets to attack twice before I take it down, meaning I only have half health remaining for the Starmie. It moves first and does half damage to me, so Omanyte goes down without even getting to attack. That loss convinced me that it's definitely better to fight the rival. You might wonder if this is even possible if the Bulbasaur is just going to constantly use Sleep Powder, but there is actually a path to victory. So it can instead choose Poison Powder, and then once I have a status condition, it's no longer going to be trying to put me to sleep. The second factor that I'm relying on to knock out his ace is the fact that he's going to choose Leech Seed next instead of Vine Whip. Conveniently for me, this is exactly what happens in my second battle against him, so I knock his ace out, but now I'm on a fast timer, because every turn I'm losing health points to Poison as well as Leech Seed. It always felt strange to me that the second of these status conditions sticks around after the grass type that inflicted it gets knocked out. If you're putting a seed on a Pokemon, it doesn't really seem like it should drain health and give it to like the Abra that's next. Luckily this thing can't deal damage because it only has Teleport and Bite is super effective. That leaves only Rattata. Now it does have Quick Attack, and it is faster than Omanyte, so it gets to attack, but my prehistoric Pokemon just barely hangs on and is able to win with 7 hit points remaining. Looking back on that battle, I think I should have been stuck there for a much longer period of time. If I went back and did this playthrough again, starting as Omanyte, I would definitely train longer in Mount Moon to ensure that my level was around 23 to 25 when I arrived here in Cerulean City. Okay, so let's proceed with the playthrough. Now, I'm gonna do a major callback to an old video from my channel. I can't believe that I have been doing this for more than 4 years now. In the first year of producing these videos, I played Omanyte evolving into Omastar in Pokemon Yellow, and the trainer that actually caused the most problems in the entire run was the lass at the end of Nugget Bridge, because she has 2 Oddish, and my Omanyte in that game only had access to water type moves, so I could not defeat the grass types, and I took so much damage from Absorb. Luckily in FireRed, Omanyte is not designed like that because its move pool is just much better. At level 25 it learns Mud Shot, a ground type move. The only other relevant move it learns through level up is Ancient Power at level 49, which is the same type attack bonus Rock move. However, this line in Generation 1 cannot learn any Rock type moves, but that's where there's good news for it, because in FireRed and Leaf Green through Move Tutor it does get access to Rock Slide, just like Aerodactyl. All 3 of these Pokemon finally have reached their final form. For additional coverage, it basically just gets Ice and Normal type moves. One major differentiating factor between Omastar and Kabutops is the fact that Kabutops gets Swords Dance so it can boost its attack stat, but Omastar does not get access to a similar move like Calm Mind. And unlike in Generation 1, Withdraw cannot be utilized for badge boost glitches, so I'm going to delete it once I reach level 25 and teach Mud Shot. At the end of Route 25, I'm going to move the camper out of the way and grab the Secret Power TM, but for now I'm not going to teach it. Let's head back to Cerulean City and take on Misty again. Staryu's first, I go for Bite. Luckily, her Pokemon just uses Harden and I knock it out for free. Alright, that's encouraging. I unfortunately forgot my Person Berry, but Bite is doing massive damage to Starmie, and at a higher level, its Water Pulses aren't doing very much to me. However, she uses a healing item, prolonging the battle, giving her more turns to attack, and as a result, Omanyte does go down. Okay, so I'm going to use the Person Berry. That was definitely just a mistake. In the next fight, I don't manage to one-hit the Staryu, but it still doesn't do anything to me, and I move on to the Starmie. This time, I pull through with Orange Health and earn myself the second badge. This also brings with it the Water Pulse TM, which of course I'm going to teach right away in the place of Water Gun. This brings my effective power up from 60 to 90, which after the second gym is honestly fantastic, and in general, water type moves are quite good offensively in this game. Since they're special, I luckily don't have to worry about any Intimidate users, which are coming up soon. On the other side of the tunnel, I make a mistake. I fight Bugcatcher Elijah. He has this Butterfree, which only has status moves, which is kind of hilarious, but it ends up paralyzing me and I don't have any healing items, meaning I have to backtrack to Cerulean City, wasting a lot of time. After backtracking, I arrive in Vermilion City, pick up the Max Ether, and then grab some repels in the Mart. On the SS hand, I take my time picking up Rest, the berries, and then I go up against the rival. In most of my videos, I gloss over this fight because it's usually not that relevant, but in this case he has Ivysaur, and that could be a serious problem for Ammonite. Water Pulse isn't able to knock out the Pidgeotto in one hit, but then he switches into the Ivysaur, which is really convenient for me because I get a free bite in, and then it just goes for Leech Seed and I knock it out for free. Alright, good job. His other Pokemon are kind of irrelevant, so I just sweep his team and make it to Surge's gym. Okay, the man, the myth, the legend, he's super effective against Ammonite, but don't worry, he's completely incompetent. I'm sure this'll be fine. Up first is Voltorb. Of course I'm not faster, but I have super effective damage with Mud Shot. It isn't doing very much and Shockwave did about a third, but because of the speed drop that this move inflicts, I'm able to move first on the second turn, knocking it out. Next is Pikachu. I move first, because yes, my Ammonite is faster, so I one-shot, moving on to the Raichu. Okay, so let's talk about the Generation 3 AI. In general, it loves to lower Pokemon's speed stats. In this case though, it doesn't even make sense because the Raichu is faster already, but it goes for Thunder Wave anyways. My Cherry Berry counters that. I'm able to use Mud Shot and drop its speed. Therefore, it is 2 points slower than Ammonite, and I'm able to attack with another Mud Shot, finishing the battle. Gotta love Surge, he is completely incompetent. I head back to Cerulean City, grab the bike, and then I'm off towards Lavender Town. If you've been following this series and my Yellow series, you'll know the discrepancy between the trainers in this area. Typically in Generation 1, they're very scary, but in Generation 3, they're quite trivial. That's not really the case for Ammonite though, because it struggles a lot against Grass-type Pokemon. Of course, I'm going to save before picking her Alicia, formerly the Rapping Lass. For her Oddish, I use Bite, luckily getting a flinch, knocking it out in 2 turns. I think here, if I reflect on this, maybe I should be using Rock Tomb for a little bit more damage. I get overall quite lucky because the second Oddish just misses Sleep Powder and I defeat her. This is not the end to Grass types though, because inside the cave, I have to fight Picnicker Martha, who has an Oddish and a Bulbasaur. The Oddish once again fails its status condition, but the Bulbasaur doesn't, putting Ammonite to sleep, and yeah, it just knocks me out with Grass type moves, so I'm going to take the Blackout here because I did not save in front of her. Honestly, I just didn't think she was going to be a problem even though she has Grass types. I was operating with the understanding that these trainers just generally aren't very good in this game. The way I get by her is with flinches from Bite. By the way, if you're confused and you see Omastar or Ammonite outspeeding Pokemon that it really shouldn't be, this is just because I have a badge boost from Surge's badge, increasing my speed stat by 10%, and I also have EVs, which none of the opponent trainers have access to. The only other Grass type in the cave is at the very end. It's just a single Oddish, but before then I get access to the move tutor for Rock Slide. With the same type attack bonus, this move has 112 effective power, and it also has a 10% chance to cause the opponent to flinch. It's a decent counter to Grass types, but soon I will have a much better option. After Lavender Town, I cut this tree, picking up 3 berries in this little area. Then I get caught by a biker. Oops. This sometimes happens, and I definitely need to get better at my overworld pathing in this game. Celadon City's next, and this is where I'm going to get access to Ice Beam, but unlike in Generation 1, this TM is not given to the player for free. Instead, I have to use 80,000 Pokédollars to purchase 4,000 coins and then buy the TM from the game corner. I think without Ice Beam, it doesn't make sense to even try to fight Erica, and I'm also going to want to evolve first. Ammonite's level 33, so that's not too far away. I have no problems with the rockets in the hideout. Intimidate isn't going to cause issues, and Giovanni's team is quite frankly awful against a rock water type. Okay, let's head to the department store and sell a bunch of items. Once I've done this, I have just under 40,000 Pokédollars, so I'm not even close to getting Ice Beam. Without it, it makes most sense to fight the rival in Pokemon Tower next. With Rock Slide, I can now 2-hit the Ivysaur. I also get a lucky flinch here. Maybe it would have knocked me out with Razor Leaf. That could have been bad, so I'm lucky I got by that. After that, I have to face Gyarados, which does intimidate me, but Rock Slide is still able to 2-hit. Intimidate triggers once again on the Growlithe, but from here, I'm just going to use special moves. Finishing up Pokemon Tower brings Ammonite up to level 37, I clear Snorlax out of the way and go onto Cycling Road to do some additional training. Defeating Biker William at the end of the route brings Ammonite up to level 40 and it evolves into Omastar. Okay, so the special attack boost is going to be really helpful because after the Safari Zone I'm going to have access to Surf. But my moveset is starting to get a little bit more constrained because before the Safari Zone I'm going to use the move tutor to teach Omastar Substitute. This is the obvious choice because it's the best move in Generation 3. After completing the Safari Zone, I teach Surf in the place of Water Pulse, and that leaves my moveset as Surf, Bite, Rock Slide, and Substitute. Next is Sylph, and I'm going to use this area to train as much as possible, plus battling the trainers here is going to give me a lot of extra money. I can also use my time in this location to collect a lot of high-priced items which I can then sell. This gives me enough money to purchase the coins needed for Ice Beam. This move rounds out my set, giving me super effective damage against grass types, so let's face Erica. Her first Pokemon is Victory Bell. My Omastar is faster, Ice Beam hits and gets the one-shot. That's a really encouraging start. Of course, the Tangela, which is at a lower level, goes down to one hit, but I wondered if maybe the Vileplume would survive, but the answer is no. Omastar's special attack is just way too good. The rival in Sylph is typically quite challenging in Generation 3, and with Ice Beam, I do want to avoid him at least for now. Let's go to Koga's gym next, because Substitute should give me a really easy way to defeat the Poison-type specialist. Before that though, I invest in training, fighting one Tamer, and then I'm ready for Koga. Okay, this fight's fairly simple once you play a decent amount of FireRed. Just set up Substitute on the first turn. I really should be holding a Pecha Berry here just in case my Substitute gets broken, but Muck's minimizes don't cause me to miss, so I just knock it out in 2 hits. It's really great when Koga isn't using healing items on it. On the other hand, he's using them on his Weezing, which is much less intimidating because unlike in Generation 1, it can't go boom. Also, once I knock it out, I level up to 46, where Omastar can learn the move Tickle. The idea of Omastar tickling me with all of its tentacles is both creepy and also really endearing. This move reduces the target's attack and defense by 1 stage each. It is a new move that I really didn't know what it did, so I just said no to it. Overall, I think this is the right choice. It's not really that good to be lowering your opponent's stats once you get past the first few gym leaders. Although I should give Game Freak props here just for the flavor that this move has. Cinnabar Island is next, and this is where Omastar is normally obtained. As a kid, I will always remember when I revived my fossil, used Omanyte to defeat Blaine with Surf, and then evolved it later into Omastar. It was a part of my core team in my first playthrough, and I will always love it because of that. This might make you confused. Why do I always choose the Dome fossil? Well, it's because I have to be unique. I can't just be Madrybred all the time. But the reasoning goes a lot deeper than that, because the fact that I chose the Helix fossil when I was a kid meant the Kabutops always felt much more enigmatic and exclusive. As I'm sure you're expecting, tomorrow I'll be completing the trilogy by coming back and doing a run with it. Okay, so I just mentioned defeating Blaine with my Omanyte at level 30 in Pokemon Yellow, and yeah, his Pokemon are absolutely terrible against the fossils. Rock Water has a double resistance to fire-type moves, so I completely stomp Blaine and earn myself the Volcano badge. This gives me a boost to both my special attack and my special defense. Doing things in this order means that I have all of my badge boosts by the time I'm backtracking to Sylph to face the rival. Plus I didn't have to significantly overtrain on random trainers to get to level 48. Typically I've been finding that level 50 is the safest for this battle, but I think that this should be fine for Omastar because it has good coverage. Up first is Pidgeot. I'm faster and one-shot with Ice Beam. I probably should have set up Substitute there. I guess I have to go up against the Venusaur, but Ice Beam just one hits. Alright, I wasn't anticipating that. Then I crit the Gyarados, knocking it out in a single hit. Surf one-shots the Alakazam, and all that's left is Growlithe. This battle was way easier than I was expecting. With him defeated, I grab Lapras. I do need to get it, even though I have Surf on Omastar, just so that I can use Strength in Victory Road. Giovanni is technically next, but after him, I have to face Sabrina. Okay, so Venomoth, as you can see, one of its type icons is green, so it's a grass type. We have to be really careful against it. Unfortunately, I'm not. I choose Surf, which of course is not very effective, but I'm just hoping that it's still going to do enough damage, and in this case it does. By the way, if you're new here, welcome to the channel, and if you're not new, consider liking the video. Next, Alakazam comes in. It uses Calm Mind, but because I have a Substitute, I'm not really scared. She wastes my time with Hyper Potions, but then I finally knock it out with another Surf. The feeling I'm getting from this run is that Omastar has just enough speed, and then once it gets access to its final moveset, it just starts crushing everything in its way. Giovanni is a good example of that. While the Dugtrio does do a decent amount to Omastar, it's just not nearly enough, and all of his Pokemon take super effective damage from Surf, so I wash them away. That said, Rival 6 is usually fairly difficult in FireRed, but I think Omastar is prepared for success. Turn 1 I set up Substitute, dodging Feather Dance, and then I one-shot with Ice Beam. Next is Venusaur, which has more speed, moving first, breaking my Substitute with Razor Leaf. Ice Beam does not one-hit, doing more than half, but then Venusaur just misses Razor Leaf and I knock it out for free. Alright, that's great. From there, I finish the Rhyhorn off. Gyarados actually gets a little bit scary with Hydro Pumps. I establish my Substitute after it, just so that I can didn't have time against the Alakazam. It goes for Future Sight, but this is not relevant. I knock it out with 2 Surfs and defeat the rival. Because of how much damage the Gyarados did following the Venusaur, I know that if Razor Leaf had hit, I would have lost. This feels like another lucky victory for Omastar. I'm just hoping that I'm not going to continue needing things like that. After all, Lorelei is coming up next, and I don't have great damage against her. I'm going to be relying mostly on Rock Slide for super effective damage against her ice types. Because I haven't had significant challenges in this playthrough up until now, I have saved all of my rare candies, which is a total of 11. I'm going to use all of them now to boost Omastar from level 56 up to 67. Now it's time for the Elite Four. Lorelei's first. Now the Dugong loves to set up Hail on the first turn, and I can take this time to use Substitute. Well, it also likes to use Safeguard, which is what happens here. Then she starts burning her full restores because Rock Slide is taking the Dugong into red health. I knock it out, move on to the Cloyster, which is kind of useless in Generation 3, so I take care of it with Surf and move on to the Slowbro. I don't have a good option against this thing. I guess Rock Slide would do the most damage, but I'm using Surf just for the increased accuracy. In the end, this is enough to 2-shot, so it doesn't really matter. I don't think Rock Slide would have 1-hit. The downside to having to 2-shot this thing is that it was able to break my Substitute, so I don't have it in place for the Lapras. I wasn't sure what to do here. Do I just go for Rock Slide and hope getting hit by a Surf or an Ice Beam, or do I set up Substitute in the hopes that it goes for something like Confuse Ray? I gamble on the Substitute. It does use Confuse Ray. That allows me to use Rock Slide, plus Lapras's Surf does not break my Substitute, so I take it out and still have my defenses set up for the Jinx. But of course this thing isn't a problem because I'm faster than it. Okay, so like with Venomoth, I make a lot of repeated jokes on this channel, and like in Generation 1, the Hiker has stumbled into the Elite Four today. Omastar has no problems here, despite technically being weak to fighting type moves. Don't worry though, this guy is replaced with Bruno when I do the League rematches, and I think that Omastar might have some problems there. In Yellow version, Agatha's first Gengar has Mega Drain, but that is not the case in FireRed. Her Pokemon just have Ghost moves and Poison moves, which is what you would expect. As a result though, I can just set up with Substitute, block their status conditions, and sweep her team. While we're watching this footage, I'm just noticing something that I forgot to talk about up until this point in the voiceover, which is the fact that I have the Mystic Water. This item is purchasable from the Game Corner for 2,000 coins, and I did that earlier on in the playthrough after grabbing the TM for Ice Beam. Prioritizing those 2 purchases in that order allowed me to beat Erica just a little bit earlier than I otherwise would have, giving me more experience for Rival 5. Okay, so the last member of the Elite 3 is Lance. He starts with a Gyarados, and because its ability is Intimidate, Rock Slide is not going to be doing as much damage as Ice Beam. This is quite unfortunate because I'm not able to 2-shot, meaning he uses a full restore after I freeze. He eventually attacks, breaking my Substitute before I continue with the rest of the battle. All of this is completely irrelevant because once the Gyarados faints, I have Ice type moves, so his Dragons are completely pathetic, plus for the Aerodactyl I have Surf, which does much more damage, so yeah, Lance is not a problem. With him out of the way, now I can face the champion. Okay, the strategy here is simple. Set up Substitute, 1-shot the Pidgeot, and then move on to the Rhydon, 1-shot it with Surf, and then he sends in Venusaur. So, how much damage is Ice Beam going to do? And the answer is almost get a 1-hit. It goes down to red health, just uses Solar Beam, and then I knock it out. That's really encouraging. Next is Alakazam. It sets up Reflect, and I use Rock Slide going for physical damage. This is like the worst possible scenario for me. I have to use Surf on the next turn to knock it out, and then the Gyarados breaks my Substitute, and I'm not able to 2-shot it using Ice Beam once again like Lance's, so it's able to knock Omastar out, giving me my first reset during the league. In the next battle, I get even luckier against the Venusaur, causing a freeze. I do just want to go through its moveset because it's not really that good against Omastar. It only has Solar Beam as an attacking Grass-type move. Other than that, it could choose things like Sunny Day and Growth, but I think it's always going to be choosing Solar Beam just because it sees that it does so much damage. So even when there's a Grass-type on his team, the Gyarados is, interestingly enough, the most intimidating Pokemon. Haha. In this case, I'm not playing contextually. I had Substitute in place, so I should be using Rock Slide, but instead I'm prioritizing Ice Beam, and once again I take a lot of damage, allowing his final Pokemon, Arcanine, to knock me out. If you're watching in the background, you're like, how did Arcanine knock you out? It has Fire-type moves. It has Bite, which is neutral, and it can also cause a flinch, which is what happens here. In the next battle, if you are watching in the background, you should tune in for just a brief moment. Check out the luck I get against this Gyarados. In this case, because I didn't have Substitute, I'm making the correct choice choosing Ice Beam, and I actually freeze the Gyarados not once, twice, and the champion uses so many full restores on it, but it still doesn't matter. while I do lose my substitute, I predict he's going to use a full restore, re-establish it, and then eventually knock out the Gyarados with my substitute still intact for the Arcanine. Because of that, I won't take damage or flinch, and Surf one-shots his final Pokemon. Omastar clocks in with a first playthrough time in FireRed of 1 hour 20 minutes and 37 seconds, and 69 centiseconds. Nice. It did this with 6 resets, 1 blackout at level 70, with a game time of 4 hours and 59 minutes. The postgame for Omastar doesn't really bring any major moveset upgrades. I defeat the postgame. This takes it from level 70 up to level 75. I do a tiny bit more training to just pop over the threshold to 76 so that I can use 2 rare candies to get to level 78 before taking on Lorelei again. I expected that this battle would be a little bit more challenging than it was the first time around. After all, Lapras knows Thunder, but she makes a really weird choice, switching it out after taking damage on Dugong. This allows me to get a free Rock Slide in and knock her ace out for free. Because of that weird strategical choice, her team just isn't an issue and I move on to Bruno. This is by far his best iteration in the entire series. After all, he has super effective damage against Omastar with every single one of his Pokemon. What I was most worried for here is the Machamp, but note that my Omastar does have shell armor, which means the opponent can't get critical hits. That's very good when the Machamp loves using a move like Cross Chop. In this case though, it just misses, and with that luck, Omastar just wins. Reflecting on that battle, I think the Pokemon that really struggle against Bruno are the ones that don't have good damage against Steelix. If you're, for example, a flying type or a normal type, and the best move you can hit the Steelix with is something like Brick Break, you're probably gonna have some issues. Agatha, on the other hand, is more challenging for Omastar because the Gengar knows Thunderbolt, and I'm not able to one-shot it, so using 2 of the electric type moves, it finishes Omastar off, giving me my first reset during the rematches of the league. This loss was just a player mistake though, because she sends in her Arbok before the final Gengar. I think what's happening here with the AI is that it's choosing what to send in next based on the type effectiveness that the Pokemon has, so Gig Drain is super effective, send that in next, but then the AI script does not execute that move. Instead, it chooses based on some other logic, in this case to set up its evasion with Double Team, which gives me the free knockout on the Arbok, and so I can make it to the final Gengar with my substitute in place. By doing this, I can survive the single Thunderbolt that hits my real health and move on to the Crobat, but it only has physical moves that Omastar resists, so I've made it to Lance. This one is much easier than the first time around because the Gyarados is just going to spam Thunder Wave over and over, letting me knock it out for free. Beyond that, I wasn't worried about the Aerodactyl, but it does break my substitute. I can one-shot the 2 following Dragonites, but Kingdra might be a problem. Well, it would be if it didn't just spam Dragon Dance over and over again. I actually freeze it, which is kind of fun, but it just defrosts right away and attacks. Omastar survives and I win. Okay, so will the champion be a problem? But the real question is, will I use Rock Slide against the Gyarados? Because his team is different, he sends his Pokemon out in different orders. This time Heracross first, which I can manage with Surf combined with Substitute, and then I one-shot the following Tyranitar. After that he chooses Gyarados before the Venusaur, and unlike last time I choose Rock Slide, which does way more than half. Because of that, I'm able to finish off the Water Serpent and move on to his ace, Venusaur. So it still only knows Solar Beam, but it also has access to Earthquake. The thing is, Solar Beam's effective power is 720, whereas Earthquake's is only 200, so the AI is prioritizing the grass type move. This means it takes 2 turns and I can knock it out with Ice Beam. Stuff slows down for a little bit on the Alakazam because I can't one-hit and he keeps healing it. I probably should have set up my substitute here. Either way, I take it down, move on to the Arcanine, and it is not a challenge even though it hits with Iron Tail. That lets Omastar clock in with a second league time of 23 minutes and 11 seconds, with only 1 reset at level 81. This is a game time of 6 hours and 28 minutes. Okay, so it's time to place Omastar in the tier list. By the way, thank you to all my supporters who support me here through YouTube memberships or over on Patreon. You really do keep the lights on and allow us to make these videos at this level of quality. If you're interested in supporting my channel, click the join button below or take the link in the description to Patreon. And if you're even considering it, thank you so much, it really means the world to me. Okay, so Omastar's results from the first league attempt are just over 1 hour and 20 minutes, which means it barely didn't scrape itself into the A tier. When I sat down to do these runs, I figured that Kabutops would be best, Omastar would be second and Aerodactyl would be third. After all, the flying type Pokemon just really hasn't performed well in the former games. I'm quite surprised that it was able to outperform Omastar in my initial attempt. That leaves me very curious about what follow-ups with these two Pokemon would look like. And maybe the factor that really differentiates these two is the fact that Omastar had to start as an Omanyte, whereas Aerodactyl started in its final form. If I use the rule set that I use for Yellow, Crystal, and Emerald, then maybe starting fully evolved with Omastar would give it the edge that it needs. I definitely think that that's the case. But just thinking it is not enough. I definitely need to test it at some point in the future. But I can't do that now because next we have to take on the game with Kabutops, so stay tuned for that video tomorrow. And I think that it has a very good chance of outperforming both of these two Pokemon, because when I played it in Pokemon Yellow, it definitely was the best of the three. If you've made it this far, you're incredible. Thank you so much. I'll see you in tomorrow's video.